Hello everybody, my name is Mike Levatino. I am from North Carolina. I am a recovered alcoholic. My sobriety date is June 24th, 2011. I have a home group, I have a sponsor, and I sponsor plenty of guys. I was really honored to be asked here tonight. This is an amazing thing to happen in my life. Everything since I got sober, life has constantly changed into a greater realm than I could have ever expected. So my job tonight is to tell you how it was, what happened, and how it's like now. And I don't spend too much time in the past, okay? My main story is about how recovery changed my life, the steps I took to do that, and the promises that the big book tells me that I get. I'm going to start off by reading one paragraph out of the big book, which kind of describes my life in the past, or how it was. And I think most of you who've been in this program know this paragraph. And it is. I have it right here. Give me 1 second. I did have it set aside, and I can't lost it. Let's see. And I'll come back to that because I will find it. My drinking career started when I was probably in my teens, about 15, 16. Drinking normal, like, with my friends, having fun on the weekends and enjoying, what we did as teenagers. I did pretty well in school. I was on the honor roll, which I don't know how that happened. I did a lot of other things besides drinking at that age. And I felt like I never really fit in any part of the high school. And that was because, one, I was in the upper echelon of the intelligence part. Then I became a jock, and then I hung out with the other group of people, which we don't need to discuss. So eventually I kind of fit in with everybody. There wasn't one group that I hung with more than the other. I did so well, though, I don't know how I did it, that I got a full scholarship to college. A full scholarship to St. John's University. And I didn't go. I didn't go to college. It never happened. I used to say it was because I was trying to help my family, support them. My mother was a single mom. She had a newborn, and I was going to help the family survive. And that wasn't the case as I look at it now. I look back on my life, and that was just because I wanted to keep partying. There was no other reason I didn't go to college. It was because I wanted to keep partying. I graduated. I did not go to college, and I worked, and I continued to drink. I got a side job in a bar, which was really a great idea at the time because it was easy money. I was a DJ, and when you work in a bar, the alcohol is free. Free alcohol was for me. I mean, even the nights that I wasn't working, I was drinking. I was at the bar drinking for free. So I spent a lot of time in a lot of bars. And in my 20s, beginning of 20s, I had gotten 3 DWIs in one month, Not thinking that was a problem. Who don't get 3 DWIs in a month? I mean, it was kind of normal, A lot of my friends were getting DWIs and getting in trouble, and I just considered that to be normal, Big Book says at one point we can't differentiate the true from the false. To me, my whole life was absolutely true. Every lie I told myself was true. And I got into other consequences because of the drinking. There was a lot of arrests that had other things attached to it, and, I started to form this little habit of getting in trouble. I got married to my first wife, and I created a monster, and I take full responsibility for that. We had a marriage, we had 2 children, and I created, like I said, something that when I met my wife, my ex-wife, she didn't do anything bad. And by the time our marriage dissolved, she was worse than I was in many aspects. I had 2 children, like I said, and she had left to Florida, and I have not talked to my kids since. So that was some of the big damage I've done in my life, you know. Besides all the fear I instilled in my mother, my family members, my grandmother, my children, you know, that was what I did. I instilled fear. I brought a lot of heartache, a lot of chaos, a lot of agony into a lot of people's lives. But I guess that was all normal. You know, I never thought I had a problem. When I worked in New York, I worked hard because I like to party hard, so I had to make a lot of money. And if you didn't understand it yet, I'm from New York, if you haven't gathered that. I don't know if my accent gives it away now, but... and I keep the accent tuned up, by the way. I go up to New York every 3 weeks just to get the tune up on my accent. And I'll tell you why I go to New York in a while. I really do go every 3 or 4 weeks. Not because I have to, not because I want to, because I get to. And that's going to be a big part of my story. So, in New York, I belonged in a union. I'm a mechanic. I'm a master technician. And when you work for a union, guess what? You can't get fired. It's almost impossible to get fired. I got called in that office, oh my gosh, at least once a week saying I smell like alcohol. Then my shop student would come in and he would defend me. That was my lawyer. I had a built-in lawyer on my job, man. It was awesome. They couldn't fire me. They would follow me with a customer's car to a liquor store watching me buy alcohol and come out in a customer's car, and they couldn't fire me. Well, I moved to North Carolina. Boy, did things change. I've never been fired so much in my life. It's true, though. It's true. I can laugh about it now, and I guess I needed that. That was, you know, it's all part of what God wanted in my life, man. I mean, I firmly feel in my heart of hearts that had I stayed in New York, I probably would be dead by now. I really do feel that way. You know, the right to work state opened up my mind to a whole new different experience. Like, gee, I can't support my family now. You know, I might be homeless. You know, things were getting bad. Oh, and the big book says what? Oh, and then they got worse. Yes. And then things got worse. So, almost losing our house, you know, that was an eye-opener to me, and it wasn't the bottom yet. And I don't even think. My wife prayed every single day. She prayed and prayed. And if you don't think prayer works, try it. It works. And I can't tell you the reason why I decided personally. It was definitely a spiritual thing. The day I decided to come to AA, because that wasn't me. My willpower sucks. All right? It's just my willpower is no good. And I'm going to tell you a story about how I describe willpower and God's will. So the other day, last week, I went to a meditation meeting in the morning, and I got a brand new sponsor. Brand new. He's got a week. And he comes into the meditation meeting late, and he sits on my left side. Friday night, I had gotten some kind of infection in my face, and the whole side of my face was blown up. It was swollen. And I had gone to the dentist Saturday, and they said it was an infection. We'll give you some antibiotics. So the meditation meeting's dark. He walks in late, and he sits down next to me. And then the lights come on, and he's sitting next to me. He looks at me. He doesn't say nothing. And I just describe my willpower. My willpower is if I have a donut sitting on my countertop, I'm going to eat it, okay? Because I don't eat sugar. But if you leave a donut on that countertop, my will's going to fail. I'm going to pick up that donut and eat it. Alcohol does not do that to me. I have lost the desire to drink. God has removed the obsession of alcohol. I do not need willpower not to drink, all right? That's the miracle of this program. So he looks over to me and he goes, man, you must have ate a lot of donuts because you got really chubby. I'm like, what? He saw half my face all swollen up. He thought I ate the whole box of donuts or something. So he made me laugh. I said, dude, that's what I keep needing to hear, things like that, you know, that you made me laugh about, you know, something that isn't really a funny thing, but we laughed about it, you know. My willpower, like I said, sucks. It's worthless. So going back to the story now. So my ex-wife and kids go off to Florida. I meet my new wife, who stays with me and I'm a drunk. I mean, that was a miracle all by itself. She could have left me 1,000 times, and she stayed with me. That's truly God all over the place. And she saw something in me that I didn't see. So she prayed, and then one day I woke out of the fog, and I was in my garage like I was all the time, by myself, drinking by myself, alone, by myself in my garage. And I lifted that bottle of vodka up, and I said, God, please help me. I can't do this no more. I was at the jumping off point, for real. You know, suicide thoughts have gone through my head. I tried a couple times, not really hard, but, you know, just to get that attention. I needed help, and I didn't know what to do. The problem was, I didn't know I was an alcoholic, right? I learned through the years now, you know, especially being a mechanic, if something's broken and you don't know that it's broke, you can't fix it, right? I was a broken vessel, and I did not know I was broken, you know? I suffered from an obsession of the mind and a physical allergy to alcohol, and I didn't know that. And when I work with other guys now, I focus on that point. You are broken, and this is what we need to do, right? This big book right here, these 12 steps. You know, this is the repair guide. Like I said, I'm a mechanic, so everything's mechanical in my mind, okay? It's broken. We know what the root cause is, selfish self-centeredness, right? The book says it. Selfish self-centeredness is our root problem. All right, so how do we get rid of that? Well, the steps get into that and tells us how we fix that. So the damage I've done so far in my life is beyond belief. You know, my relationship with my children is gone. All right, my children are in their 20, almost 30 now. I saw my children when I was a year sober, so that was 11 years ago. And they knew I was sober, and they had a great time with me. But something happened, and they haven't talked to me since. Now, it's not like I haven't pursued them and looked for that relationship with them, but it's their choice. They're young adults, right? I know I'm doing my part. I'm staying sober, and I'm not letting that hold me down. Step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Our lives have become unmanageable. That was one of the hardest things I had to do. And again, it's a two-part step that I had to understand it 100%. There wasn't 99.9. There wasn't a little bit of doubt in my mind. I knew I was a true alcoholic. Now, how do I know I was a true alcoholic? Not by the damage I created, not by the agony I've inflicted on other people's lives. I tried to quit drinking for 3 days. I put the bottle down for 3 days. 3 days. I was going to lose my job again. And I worked for a dealership, and they said, if you don't stop drinking, we're going to get you fired. You're done. So I stopped. My willpower is going to fix this. Watch. 3 days. I drove my wife and her son to a baseball field. I get out of the car, and I have a grand mal seizure. I almost die. Why? I stopped drinking. What an idiot. If I stop drinking, I'm going to die. That's alcoholic thinking 100 times over, right? So what do? I get out of the hospital, and I drink more than I ever drank before. I drank more. Because that's an alcoholic mind right there, That was 3 days without any alcohol in my body, without the allergic reaction happening. But yet my obsession of mind took over, and it covered up that whole terrible experience in the hospital. If you never had a grand mal seizure, I don't advise getting one. They're not fun. They're really not. But it brought me to the point, I still drank another year after that, by the way. 1 more year of pain. And that 1 year, I got married. My wife married me. Again, I don't know why she married me. I was still drinking. My anniversary date, my sobriety anniversary date and our wedding date is 1 year apart. I drank for 1 more year, and then I got sober. If it was reversed, I don't know. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. She is a saint. I mean, she put up with stuff that nobody needed to be putting up with. I mean, I was a crazy, crazy drunk. So first step, I admitted I was powerless, and I did that. And, I had a sponsor who was And I called him today before I was at, my wife plays pickleball. We were at the park, and usually I sit in the car, take a nap or something. But I took my big book out and I read my big book while she was playing pickleball. And I called my sponsor. And I called him and I said, I just want to thank you for what you've done, where you put me in my life. You know, when I met my sponsor, everybody called him a big book thumper. And, you know, I heard that in a couple of meetings here in recently, this weekend. And I've become that person, and I thanked him for that. I thanked him for that. Because he showed me the way that works for him, that works for the people before him, you know, what goes all the way down to Bill and Bob. He showed me the right way of doing it. He showed me the book is what gets us out of our problems. Not just our alcohol problem, but all our problems. And we started crying. We started crying, both of us. And it was a moment, it's moments like that make sobriety priceless. You know, I'm on the phone with a gentleman, and we're sitting there crying about how good our lives are. That's a far cry from where I was 12 years ago. So I go through the steps, came to believe in a power greater than myself that could restore me to sanity. Again, not knowing I was broken ever, and not knowing I was insane. I was utterly insane. And to turn my will over to the power of God as I understood him, that was a big thing. Because when I was drinking, we used to go to church, and every time, about halfway through the church mass, I would say, I need to go to the bathroom. And I would run out to the car and get some vodka. You know, that God of my understanding there was no God of my understanding. It was Mike's understanding how much vodka I could get in me at one time. That was the only God I had. So I had to be willing. Willing was the key word to make a change in my life. The way my life was going, it wasn't going the way I had ever thought it would. So I had to be willing to turn it over. And it wasn't an easy thing to do at first. Then comes step 4 and 5, and 6 and 7, and I have to make this inventory of all the harms I've done to others and the resentments. And you know, when I work with other guys now, and they said, I got no resentments. I was like, yeah, we're going to sit here, we're going to talk about this a little bit more. And by the time I did the same thing, I was like, I really don't have any resentments. I said, what do you mean, like I'm mad at somebody? You know? And then when we got into it, and we start uncovering it, and it gets deeper and deeper, and boy, I had so much wrong with me, so much fear, so much hate, so much prejudice, so much everything. I mean, I was riddled with fear. It was shot through my body like fabric, man. That's what the big book says. And every cell in my body had fear in it. You know, and that was the way I lived my whole life. I mean, getting in a car and wondering if I'm going to get pulled over, if those lights are going to turn on behind me. You know, is my boss going to find out? What's my wife going to say? You know, everything I did was fear-based, everything. One lie after another, trying to cover everything up. And now I have to unveil this to another gentleman in steps 4 and 5. That was hard at first. And then it got easier and easier. You know, it's funny how God works in our lives, and I went to a meeting after I did step 4 and 5. I went to a meeting like a week later, not even a week, maybe a couple of days later. And there was a meeting on step 4. I was like, okay, I just finished step 4. And they said, if you don't do it honestly, and you don't tell all your deep secrets, you're going to die. Man, this boy left that meeting. I ran out and called my sponsor. I said, I need to talk to you right now. And he said, it can wait till tomorrow. I said, no, I'm going to die. I need to talk to you. And he says, we're going to meet in the morning. And I said, okay. So I had to go through the night, hoping I wouldn't die, holding this secret, you know, because I was new to this whole thing. I was new to this process. And I got into his office the next morning, and I told him, and he says, okay. I'm like, what? Okay? That was my deepest, darkest secret. It's like, it's okay. You know, it's done. It was that easy, you know, but that fear had got me gripped. I mean, I was gripped still. Even after doing step 4 and 5, I said, I felt relief, but I still had that one thing. You know, I probably had a couple more than one. I'm just saying one, but I probably had a couple more. And through the years, you know, we've worked through all those little roadblocks that I forgot about. So, come steps, 8 and 9, I made my list in step 4, and I didn't know really how to make amends. I know a lot of my guys come in and I work with them and they're like, I just want to say I'm sorry to this person. I said, well, slow down. That's step 9. Let's go to that's step 8 and 9. We need to start at step 1. And one thing I got out of this weekend in Tennessee was every meeting had to talk about patience. Every meeting I went to was about patience. And it's funny because the new guy I'm working with, that was how I left off when I left him the other day, Thursday or Wednesday, whenever I saw him last. He's impatient. I was like, dude, you have to have patience. I know you want to make everything right and you want to get your family back, but patience is key to this thing. So I made my amends when I felt God wanted me to make them. And I didn't really sit down and say, I didn't go on my phone and set up a schedule saying, I'm going to make amends to this person on this day. I prayed about it. By this time, my spirituality is starting to grow some. And I'm relying on God more and less on me. And I let Him control the outcome of my amends. And as soon as I did that, as soon as I released my control on that, God took over. And the amends started coming out of nowhere. People were just showing up in absolute perfect conditions to make an amends. I couldn't have fixed them in any better area, time, or anything because they were just perfect. And I know that wasn't me, that was God. Right? And then, step 10, we continue to take personal inventory. And I do that daily. I'm not always the person that goes to bed at night and makes my inventory list or anything like that, but on a daily, if I make a mistake, which, believe it or not, once in a while I make a mistake, it happens, I make an amends immediately. The words I'm sorry, if I said it once in my life, I said it a zillion times, So sorry has no weight, unless I genuinely mean it and it comes from my heart, which it does now. There were a lot of empty I'm sorry's throughout my whole life. And then my favorite step is step 11. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understood Him, right? I go on a spiritual retreat twice a year up to Old Fort, Camp Greer, and it's Veda Meekum. And I met Darryl and the rest of his crew up there, and a lot of other men that have a lot of time, a lot of spiritual, unbelievable spirituality. And we pray, we seek God, we try to improve that conscious contact with Him. And every time I look at another gentleman up on that retreat, I learn something new. This is continuation, it's continual education for me, because I'm never going to get this 100%. And I have to continue to seek. I'm seeking every minute of my life to improve my relationship with God and my fellow man. I watched the man get on his knees before bed and pray. And I said, man, if he could do that, I could do that, right? He humbled himself. He had a lot more sobriety than me. And I heard him get on his, I watched him get on his knees and I heard him say his prayers out loud. I'm like, that is awesome. I went home and every night I do that now. Well, every morning I get up and get on my knees and I pray. Because I watched another gentleman do it. I humbled myself before God because that's what I need to do. That's what I need to do. If I can't improve my conscious contact with God, then I'm pretty screwed. I need to keep doing that. Big Book says over and over, we don't rest on our laurels, right? We're constantly seeking, we're constantly looking, And I do every moment. JD asked me just before I came up, he goes, you want to go out and pray? I said, I already went outside and prayed. And God answered me. I took a picture of the sky. It was just like, it was on fire. And I was like, God already spoke to me. I didn't need to go out and pray again because God already spoke to me tonight. Right? This is not my story I'm giving. This is God's story. I'm just a vessel of God, right? This is His story, His glory. This has nothing to do with me. If it wasn't for God and His power, I wouldn't be here right now, right? So step 11 for me is where I sit every minute of my life. I was blessed to get my own business 4 years ago, And it gets me to have, opportunities to be here with you guys, right? Not calling the boss and saying I need to take off. Or my wife has a job that she has to call and ask, but that's fine. It always works out the way God wants it to work out. What I do all day long is, I work with a bunch of people, sponsees, and they have an opportunity to come to me at any time during the day to sit down and work with me. I can put my cars on hold because they'll get better when I make them better, right? They'll get better when I get back to them. But the man who comes into my house or my driveway or my garage, he takes priority over everything. When I give, I find out that everything else falls in place a lot better than I could ever place it, So I have the opportunity to be self-employed and to give back this program every minute I can, When Darryl called me and said, would you speak? I didn't hesitate. Of course I'll speak. And I'm just like everyone in this room, I suffer from the same exact thing you do, the same spiritual disease. The big book says only one time in the book, disease, it's spiritual disease, right? I have become spiritually fit now. And step 12, like I said, I do that to the best of my ability every day. Try to carry this message. I'll be back Tuesday, I'll be in a hospital, I'll be in H&I, bringing the meat to, people that are recovering. I watch JD, he's got his plate full. I watch people like Darryl, all these sponsors. I just watch people. I watch and I learn. I watch and I learn because I know nothing really. I know what he lets me know, right? And I get to use that to the best of my ability. This program has restored me more than I ever could have wished in a million years. It's brought me things that I couldn't even imagine. So I say I go to New York every 3 weeks to get my accent tuned up. I go to New York to sit by my brother's side. He's dying. He has ALS. And about 2 months ago, he said to me, he says, I hated you at one point. I wish you were dead. He wished I was dead, my own brother. That was the pain I put on his life, and I don't even remember doing it. That's the sad part. I don't remember doing that. So every 3 weeks I get to go up there. I get, 3 or 4 weeks, I get to hold his hand. I get to kiss him, hold him, even wipe his ass, really. Because he can't do nothing. He can't do nothing, my brother. He's 49 years old. And I get to be there for him, right? He let me remarry him. I got ordained. I was the biggest drunk in the neighborhood. I'm an ordained minister. I got to remarry my brother last August with his wife. I got to baptize him in my pool. Things that I would never conceive of doing. That's what sobriety brought to my life. It brought me a whole different spiritual realm. And the whole thing about getting ordained was one of my sponsees said to me, Mike, do you know anybody who could marry me? And I was like, well, I know this girl, Julie. Let me go find out. Julie wanted $200. I said, you're out of your mind. So I said, give me a couple weeks. $200 is too much money to get married. Give me a couple weeks. And I went and got ordained. And I said, how about if I married you? This boy started crying. He's like, that would be the most awesome thing you could ever do. And we are great friends. That's what this whole program brought me. Friends that are true friends. I never had friends like this before. People I meet, I'm out of state and we went to 3 meetings already. I feel like I know everybody in this room. I really do. I'm coming in here tonight and people say, hey, Mike, what's up? Because I went to 3 meetings. Complete strangers. But yet I feel welcomed. I feel like part of the family. Me and JD, we've been rolling around for 3 days, boy. The laughs that we had. When JD first met me, he wanted to kill me. He thought I was harassing Darryl. I thought it was Darryl's bodyguard. Little did he know me and Darryl were good friends. But that's the fun I get to have in life now, right? That's the fun. And they brought Shane up. I said, I got 2 bodyguards. They're both going to kill me now. I thought I was going to die, man. But see, I can laugh about things like that because I'm not living in fear. Because I know that we have so much fun together, right? So with my brother, like I said, I get to be part of his life now. I get to minister to him. I get to take care of him. I get to love him. We are going up there in 3 weeks again, and that'll be Thanksgiving. And it might be the last time I see my brother. Right? It might be the last time. But I'm okay with that. I can't change that, right? I'm not God. I can't change it. But what God has given me is the ability to be there for him. Right? I never would have had that if I was drinking. If I was still a drunk, I would still be a drunk, and nobody would want me around. The program, if you're new in it and you haven't seen any miracles happen, man, they come. They constantly keep coming. They just don't stop. And like I said, I went outside just a little while ago and I just saw that sky. And things like that talk to me now. You know, my life before I was focused on a bottle all day long. You know, that mental obsession's been lifted, and that was a gift that is beyond my wildest dreams. My house is loaded with alcohol, bottles of, booze, and a refrigerator full of beer. We have just one refrigerator dedicated to beer. We have a lot of parties at our house. And I get to do that. I'm home all day. I work for myself. The thought of a drink never enters my mind. And if you leave donuts, I'm not going to get fat, I promise, but I will eat them. I will eat the donuts. But that's my willpower again. I don't need willpower for alcohol. What a miracle. What a miracle. A person who couldn't go to church and make it for 60 minutes without a drink could stay in a house full of alcohol all day long. Now, if you don't think that's a miracle, I don't know what is. I get to work with a bunch of guys, and we were sitting in bed the other night. My wife's like, how many sponsees you got? I said, I have no clue. I don't. It doesn't matter the number, right? What matters is that I take my time now, and I give it to other people. Right? That selfish self-centeredness that I live with my whole life, that root cause of my problem, is less and less now. The more I give, the less selfish I am, right? And God has put so much in my life because of that. This big book, it says so much stuff about me. When you read it, when I read it to another guy, and I'm reading it out loud to them, and they're like, that book's about me. I said, yeah, it's about all of us. Because you could see it in their eyes. They see themselves on these pages. This is a divinely written book. I 100% believe that. There's no doubt that God had something to do with the writing of this book. I work with other people as much as I can. I do as much work as I can to help others. And there are so many things that's happened in sobriety, like I said, things that I would never imagine. And, someday, I look at, like I said, I haven't talked to my children in 11 years. Most people would take that as a bad thing, right? I focus on positive things now. And that helps me get through a lot of stuff. One thing, I look at 8 years ago, I went out to that Veda Meekum retreat 8 years ago. And I met this little guy, 22 years old. Little kid, 22. Young guy on the mountain. And we became friends. Became really good friends. And then we started going out to Myrtle's Inlet, Myrtle Beach, and hanging out with him and his girlfriend. And, well, they got engaged and they had a baby. Now I'm a godfather. And that happened on a mountain on a spiritual retreat that otherwise I would have never been a godfather today. And not the godfather mafia type. I'm a godfather for a little baby, right? Because these guys are miscrewed. They think I'm a godfather. So I get to be a godparent. And I look at things like, okay, my son had a baby. So I hear. I should be a grandfather. Right? But I'm not. But I'm a godfather. Why? God has given me a child out of nowhere. From a spiritual retreat, I have a godchild now. Now, if you don't see that miracle right there, right? And that baby was in my house a couple of weeks ago, and we were holding it and loving it. And that's a gift of God, man. I'm not saying I don't miss my children, but it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me go out and pick up a drink. Right? Because I get all this good stuff. I focus on the positive. I have a God job. I mean, that's amazing. Those are the gifts we get. Constantly. Over and over and over. When Darryl asked me, like I said, to come up here, I didn't know what this was all about. he said Roundup. I'm thinking of bug spray. Grass spray. I don't know, Roundup. And then he explained it to me. I said, absolutely. I'm going to find that one paragraph which really describes me or us to a T. And I had all these little bookmarks in here, and I kind of misplaced them all. But I know the page. Okay, so this was before I came into the program. I'm going to go through a couple of things in the book before what happened and now, right? It says, for most normal drinking means conviviality, companionships, and colorful imagination. It means a release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joyous intimacy with friends and feeling that life is good, but not so with us, those last few days of heavy drinking. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the great moments of the past. There was an insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. There was always one more attempt and one more failure. Nah, if that don't describe my life before I got sober, I don't know what does. Before, like I said, the word sorry became a common word, like is or a. I use I'm sorry all the time. And a couple of times because there's only a couple of times I actually tried to quit drinking. I had a firm resolve to quit, right? And that never worked out, ever. And then the program came into play, and the miracle happened, and this book is full of such good stuff. I could read the whole book to you, 164 pages right now, and every word in this book is my favorite part. And people laugh. I say, that's my favorite part. The whole book is my favorite part, right? There's not one chapter that's better than the next. We were talking about two wives. Like, who wants to read a chapter, two wives? This ain't about, And it wound up becoming a chapter that became a key point in my life to show how much misery and pain I put people through, right? That I'm responsible for that pain, not my wife, and the family afterwards. These were chapters in the book that I said, who wants to read these? These are boring. These are going to be terrible. What was that? Contempt prior to investigation. The last line in the book, right? To keep me in everlasting ignorance. Contempt prior to investigation. That prejudice that I had my whole life. I had to remove the prejudice, and I had to have an open mind. If you come in this program with a closed mind or preconceived idea of God, it's going to be a roadblock. I start in the back of the book with a sponsor. I start with that line. If you want to be in everlasting ignorance, try some contempt prior to investigation. And they're like, what? This is a brand new guy, still detoxing, and he's like, what are you talking about? I said, you'll figure this out, right? Let's get to step one. You'll understand it. Because if we come in this program with an idea of what an alcoholic is, which I did, I had that same idea that most people do, that an alcoholic's that guy, I'm from New York, so I think of the Bowery, guys in the Bowery with wine bottles and long trench coats and hanging out on the corner. That was an alcoholic when I was growing up. But again, I had no idea what a real alcoholic was. And to have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, boy, that's insane. I could actually recover from this. We've been doing a lot of acronyms this weekend, and I'm not even going to try to remember them because I forgot them already, but he's laughing because there are so many good acronyms out there for this program. But if you don't know you're an alcoholic and why you're an alcoholic, you need to understand that fact first. To fix what's broken, you have to understand how it works and why it's broke. This program, I've seen it work and I've seen it not work. I've had plenty of guys that got it, and I had a couple guys that didn't get it, and a couple guys that really, really didn't get it. This is a program that can save your life. Absolutely, positively save your life. Change your life. Enhance your life. I do a big book study on Thursday nights, and it's a line-by-line study of the big book. And I love doing it. I've been doing it for 9 years, And attendance goes up, it goes down, it changes. You know, the pandemic came, and that was another blessing, that I had a house that I could actually hold meetings in. You know, to me, a meeting's not going to get me sober, but a meeting helps me stay sober, right? I need the fellowship. I need to find sponsees, right? I'll tell you another miracle story if you don't think this program has any substance. We looked for a house, me and my wife, for years, 2 years, 3 years. We were looking for another house so I could own my own business. And one night she's laying in bed, she was like, look at this house. And I'm like, that's it. It was a run-down old piece of crap house. In the picture, it looked kind of decent. And I looked at it and I said, let's go look at it. So I call up my friend Julie. Oh, yeah, Julie's in the program. And she's a real estate agent. And I said, I need to get into this house tomorrow. She takes us to the house. She says, I need you to know something. I said, what? She says, the woman who owns this house, you might know her husband. His name's Jack. He was in the program. He used to go to my home group. He died of alcoholism. Right? I was looking in the house in February. He died in July before he died of alcoholism. And I knew him because he used to go in and out. He could not stay sober. And I didn't know him well, like I know my friends now, but I knew of him, and I knew that of his ways, that he couldn't stay with the program. He kept losing and going back out. So Jack died. His house was for sale, and we made a bid on it, and we bought it. And when I got into the house, well, when I went to go look at the house, I had a brand new sponsor, brand new. Now, I knew this man from 8 years before. And he said to me, Mike, I knew one day you'd be my sponsor. I'm like, what? 8 years ago, you knew I'd be your sponsor one day. This man built houses for a living. He built houses. So he came with me, my brand new sponsee, and he looked at the house and he said, buy the house, it's got good bones. I took his word. And then I had an inspector come by, and it was 32-page report of the house, and it was bad. I mean, the floors were caving in, and the band beams were all rotted out. They had to jack the floors and put joists in them, and it was just terrible. It was infested with cockroaches. It smelled like dog urine, and it was bad. And I had that buyer's remorse. But we wound up buying a house. So we bought the house from an alcoholic who destroyed the house. Just before I bought the house, I loaned a contractor some money, a friend, and I needed him. And I said, you know what money you owe me? Let's work it off. I had a contractor in AA rebuilding my house. I had the guy who come to look at the house with me that day, the builder, who told me to buy the house. He's in AA. The lawyer who closed on my house, he's in AA. The mortgage broker is in AA. These are all my friends. All right? The plumber was my sponsee. He did all my plumbing. The man that worked at Sunbelt, the tool rental, he was one of my sponsees. Okay, long story short, the house was destroyed by alcoholism and rebuilt by recovered alcoholics. All right? I couldn't make that story up if I tried, right? And that house has harbored, I don't know, more meetings than you can imagine, because we had meetings there during the pandemic. But God built that house that I could use it. Right? It's not my house, it's God's house. It's His property, everything's His. I've done weddings, baptisms. It's God's property, right? And it was rebuilt by recovered alcoholics. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, that's the miracle. And I don't interview people when I'm sponsoring. Hey, what do you do for a living? I might need a plumber. It's not how I do it. I mean, I should, but I don't. But all these people are in my life for a reason. God placed them there. God placed them there. And then right after the house got done and we were into it for 4 months, the guy who told me to buy the house, he went back out drinking. He's still my friend. He came over to my house a couple of weeks ago. He's doing much better, but he had gone through a rough patch. But for that moment, that time when I needed him most, when God knew I needed him, he was there. I mean, I couldn't have planned the timing. Like I said, it's God's timing. This whole thing, my whole life is all based on God's timing, not mine. And that word patience. You know, I want things done right away, you know. And I just pray about it. And I ask God every moment of my life to give me patience. And there's some more little projects that we need to be done in the house. And I'm just, you know, again, the same contract I loan money to, he owes me more money again. And he just happened to move next door to me now. He's renting a room next door. And guess what? I need some work done again. But I loaned him the money out of good faith, right? You know, when they say when you loan people money, you don't expect to get it back. And he came over to me at the house the other day, and he said, you know, and I know I owe you money. I feel terrible. I said, we'll work it out, Jim. We'll take care of this, you know. And that to me is an amazing thing. I have the patience to wait for it. It's been a year and a half. But I really kind of chalked it up. I said, you know, we've been blessed. And look, he moves next door to me now. He disappeared for a while. Now he's next door. So if I need him, he's there. We've gone through so much, me and my wife, miracle-wise, and we had a spell that was really bad. She has a son who was acting up, to say the least, and we had to walk around with locked doors in our house because we couldn't trust him, and it was bad. And that one time, I mean bad, that we had the police at our house like every other day, and that was probably 6 years ago. They were at the house a lot. And it wasn't for me this time, which is another amazing thing, right? It wasn't for me. They were there for him, not for me. Another miracle. God's timing, God's power. God, it's amazing. I went to a meeting. And these are stories that I couldn't make up if I tried. I went to a meeting, and my sponsor, he says, Mike, can we come back to my house after the meetings to do some step work? He's never asked me to do step work after a meeting before, on Sunday morning. I was like, no, I got an hour before church. Yeah, we could do that. So I go back to his house. And in that time, this child I speak of acted up and got a little violent. And he got bad. He got ugly. He got violent with my wife and his mom. I kept saying, God, if I was home, I'd probably get arrested. God pulled me out of the situation to sponsor another man. See, when I'm less selfish, things always work out better. If I had been selfish and I just want to go home and rest before church, I would have been put in that environment. Now, in my back of my mind, if I pick up a drink, what's going to happen? I'm not going to be able to stop, right? If I hit this boy, I'm not going to be able to stop. I was full of fear that I wouldn't be able to pull off. I didn't have to worry about it, though, because God pulled me out of that situation. And there's thousands and thousands of stories like that I have. That when I see God working throughout the day, I have to have faith, and that faith carries me through anything. Life, just because I'm sober doesn't mean everything's great. It's not. Last weekend when I had that puffed up cheek and I was fat on one side and not the other, I was coming from the dentist and my van blows the tranny, right? Okay, I'm a mechanic. Instead of me being upset about it, I looked up at God and I said, thank you. Thank you. Because I could have been driving home from New York in the middle of the night. I could have been driving to here and never making it here, right? Because that was only a week ago, right? And I would have sucked coming here and not making it here because my van would have blown. So I thank God, and I happened to pull in. My car coasted into the auto parts store that I do business with. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better spot to break down. I mean, that's God. I mean, and I just said, thank you, you know? I am truly blessed that I found this program and I get to work with other people. And like I said, if you don't think this program works, or you haven't talked to anybody that's been through this, you got to try it, man. And I'm really truly blessed that I gave it a shot. And I took step one 100%. Because I know if I drink, I'm going to die. I know that. You know, that when I quit drinking that time for those 3 days, I was up to a gallon of vodka a day. A gallon a day. And my body went through a withdrawal that put me into almost death. And I thought, yeah, this is normal. Let me drink some more. But I look at it now, and anything that's going to interfere with my life and my sobriety, I have to get rid of it, you know. And pray a lot. This has been a huge honor, and there's so much I could share about stories and this big book, and this program is amazing, and the people in it, you know, it's pure love. God's will is love, man. It really is. I never knew how to love before, never, you know. And if you look at the definition, when I work with a guy and they say, what's God's will? And I said, it's love. And they're like, what? I said, let's go with the other book, the Bible. And I'll go to 1 Corinthians 13, Verse 4, love is patient, love is kind, love is forgiving, love keeps no record of wrongs, right? What is that? Resentments, right? It's describing our program to a T. If we could live in love, if we could live the principles of this program, honesty and faith and hope and giving, brotherly love, spirituality, if we could live those principles, you're going to have a life beyond your wildest dreams. And that's a promise. Speaking of promises, I had a little fun facts I want to share with you guys. The big book right here is loaded with promises. Now, when we do a program, or when we do a meeting in North Carolina, we read the 9-step promises, right? Which are great promises. The big book itself, though, has 238 promises plus, right? It's loaded with promises. Every page just about has a promise on it. Promises that we could get if we try for this program, right? The word God, if you don't think you're going to be seeing God in this book, 281 times the word God is used. That's a lot of times, right? So you're going to have to get close to that God of your understanding. You don't have to be my God, but it has to be a God that you understand. Because God will be used in this book. In one way, shape, or form, the word God will be used. Fear, 32 times. They use the word fear 32 times. That's a lot of times. In 164 pages, use the word fear 32 times. That's a lot. And that's how I lived my whole life, right? But once you get faith, that fear gets erased more and more each day. Honesty and honest. I didn't know what that word meant. I had no clue what that word meant 12 years ago. They used it 35 times. And then recovered and recover. Recovered. It's a promise. We are 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Forward to first edition starts. The book starts off with a promise. Recovered. Right? I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'm still an alcoholic. If I pick up a drink, I'm going to die. But I'm recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And everybody has the right to get there with this book. And that's it. I'm going to close on that. Thanks, guys.